What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Ben Mahari here, representing Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the basketball community. You understand what I'm saying? Don't miss basketball conversations right here on this channel every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time is where we bring in, all the people in to discuss, basketball related topics, news, and we'll even have some debate nights even on the channel too with some of the other brothers out there to discuss any of the stuff that was going on in the world of basketball. You understand what I'm saying? So make sure to don't miss out on that. All right. So, with all that out the way, let's get down to business here, shall we? So, there's been a lot of things that have been going around in the aftermath of the Jordan documentary. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of, you know, barbs. There's been a lot of stances, and there's been a lot of back and forths. But particularly, what's been going on with Horace Grant has been crazy. You know what I mean? And Tuesday, when he was being interviewed by Kap and Company on ESPN 100 in Chicago, he pretty much blasted Michael Jordan for basically said called Jordan a snitch and basically called him a liar. You know what I mean? What he pretty much said is this, and these are the quotes that I have the article right in front of me. He pretty much said, lie, lie, lie. If MJ had a grudge with me, let's settle it like men. Let's talk about it. Or we can settle it another way. But yet and still he goes out and puts out this lie that I was the source behind the book, which is the famous book called The Jordan Rules, written by Chicago Bulls Tribune reporter Sam Smith. Sam and I have always been great friends. We're still great friends. But the sanity of that locker room, I would never put anything personal out there. The mere fact that Sam Smith was an investigative reporter, that he had to leave out two sources, two to write a book, I guess. Why would MJ point me out? It's only a grudge, man. I'm telling you, it was only a grudge. And I think he proved that during the so-called documentary. When if you say something about him, he's going to cut you off. He's going to try to destroy your character. All right? And then he also relates to about the friendship with Charles Barkley, the former friendship that he had with him. He pretty much said, Charles Barkley, they've been friends for over 20 to 30 years. And he said something about Michael's management with the Charlotte Bobcats or the Charlotte Hornets, and then they haven't even spoke since. And my point is, he said that I was the snitch, but yet still after 35 years, he brings up his rookie year going into one of the teammates' rooms and seeing coke, weed and women. My point is, why the hell did he want to bring that up? What does it got to do with anything? I mean, if you want to call somebody a snitch, that's a damn snitch right there. And then he also continued on and said, I would say it was entertaining, but we know who was there as his teammates, and that about 90% of it. I don't know if I could say it on the air, but BS in terms of the realness of it. It wasn't real because a lot of the things Jordan has said to some of his teammates that his teammates went back at him, but all of that was kind of edited out in the documentary, if you want to call it a documentary. End quote. Now I'm gonna put the link to the article in the comment section there too, so you can guys read it for yourself. But here's my 2 cents about this whole thing. I kind of, feel a little bit for Horace Grant to a certain extent because he kind of being put out there as this person who basically ratted out, to everybody about what was going on in the Bulls locker room. But here's where Grant loses in this case. All right. Michael is above everybody. And the rest of his teammates, including Grant, Pippen, Armstrong, even Rodman, all right, they're all down below here. All right. And so there's going to be a lot of people that is going to take Michael's words verbatim. All right. Now, the thing about the whole book was is that listen, Sam Smith did his job basically just trying to figure out who was basically trying to find out the perception about Michael Jordan as just a leader and a player, in during the practices and in the locker room. Okay. When you're an investigative reporter, your job is to try to cultivate sources and cultivate main sources to try to leak some of the information out there to you. Now, Sam Smith has never released who the sources were, and nor did he has to. He doesn't need to. All right. But there were a lot of people in the media that could pretty much, speculate that were speculating that it was Horace Grant that was releasing to the stuff there. And when he mentioned that he had the friendship with the reporter and still does, I'm sorry, bro. That right there, in and of itself, though, is basically your snitch. You're basically snitching out all the other stuff. Now, I do agree with Horace Grant on one thing, and here's what I agree with him on this. I say that Horace Grant is right when Michael talked about his rookie year when his teammates were basically bringing in different types of women, drugs, or everything else in between because that's the sanity of a team. You don't want to release it out there because back then it was the '80s, it was the Wild Wild West back in the day. You understand what I'm saying? But to call Michael Jordan a snitch when you basically were the lead man that were basically releasing the information out there, you know what I mean? Listen, bro, you can't play that double standard. You just can't. All right? Because listen, I'm believing right now that Horace Grant pretty much was the guy that leaked out most of the stuff that was going on in them practices. All right? And when you flat out admit that you had a really good relationship with the reporter and you're still friends with him, I mean, what are people supposed to believe? What are we supposed to say? All right. And I really have really been getting disgusted with Scottie Pippen of all people there too. And I also dropped a video about that, but I'm gonna drop a more in-depth video about this though later on tonight. So stay tuned for that. But I'm kind of disgusted at Horace Grant because listen, you didn't stand up to Michael Jordan when he's basically taking away your food from you after you played terrible. All right. You had multiple opportunities to stand up to Michael Jordan and basically not take that, but you didn't. You know why? Because you were afraid of you were gonna lose your job. That's all there is to it. Because listen, at the end of the day, Michael was never going to do that to Charles Oakley because Michael knew. Listen, Michael knew that Charles Oakley was always going to bring it, and if you dare try anything stupid on Charles Oakley was going to rip Michael Jordan's head off. They all know this. That's one of the reasons why Charles Oakley is not to be messed around with even today. All right, and so when Horace Grant came into the league, he was soft. I'm not gonna lie to you. I love Horace Grant, even as a Bulls fan, and I'm always gonna be thankful for what he did, during those years. But there's a bit of a jealousy factor when it comes into these kind of situations because Grant felt that he was not being appreciated of doing what he was able to do, during that championship years. It's basically a rebounder, a guy that was basically can defend both backwards, with the mid-range jump shot. I mean, he did really, really well playing the role that he was in. But it also falls under the line under the third wheel situations. Listen, when you're playing on a great team, the third man that is basically on the team doesn't always get the much attention and the much appreciation that they deserve. All right, and I feel like during this whole documentary, it was pretty much explaining to how Pippen wasn't getting the shot that he deserves because of the contract situation, which he did it to himself, and then Horace was kind of envious and jealous of the fact that he wasn't being recognized as one of the main core players of the team. That's one of the reasons why he left as a free agent after '94 to the Orlando Magic. All right, and so I'm really just kind of puzzled about how Horace Grant is just taking this. All right, you call Michael Jordan a snitch, but then you turn around and you basically leaked out some of the stuff there in the book. All right, and listen, we don't know who the other sources are, and Sam Smith will never release that stuff because as a reporter, you will never ever reveal your sources, even if it's the U.S. government. All right, I've seen reporters go to jail basically for not for not explaining who their sources are because there's a confidentiality, code in the ethics of journalism. All right, and I know this for a fact. All right, here's the thing: why in the world would Horace Grant basically label Michael Jordan a snitch, which he was, but then turn around and you do the same thing? You see, I find that to be a very huge double standard. I really do. And it's really coming across as really just more pettiness from against the players to Michael Jordan. All right. And that's how I kind of see this whole thing. Now, do I agree that Michael Jordan was not a perfect role model? I agree with that. He was not a perfect role model, and he was not a guy that was basically going to be caring about your feelings. Because at the end of the day, he sacrificed all that to win his championships. And when you win, it excuses everything else. That's just how America is basically run on. It don't matter what kind of a personality you are, all right? Unless if you commit murder or commit terrorism, that's different. But when you basically sacrifice, being a good guy to win, it excuses everything else. All right. And Michael basically was basically winning them championships and helping these guys build the confidence within themselves to win. Now, did he had to, be an asshole about it to his teammates to get them to play at their peak? You bet he did. All right. But it's up to the players to stand up to Michael Jordan and not take that. Bill Cartwright did it. All right. Robert Parrish did it. All right. Steve Kerr, of all people, did it. All right. You know what I mean? Even Will Purdue had to do it. All right. So at the end of the day, Horace Grant is just he's not come across pretty good to me in my eyes. And when he released the kind of stuff, and this is the other thing though too. Why in the world would you accept a phone call from Shannon Sharp to try to spill out more of the same stuff that you were going through when you were playing with Michael Jordan? Because you're fitting into a perception that LeBron James is basically a very good teammate and wouldn't do something like that, which is beyond BS, because I'm sure LeBron James has done the same things, but maybe a little bit more worse. Kobe used to do the same things, but twice as worse. Even Craig Hodges admitted that Kobe Bryant was much worse than Michael Jordan. That's fact. All right. So all these things, coming into the forefront here, Horace Grant just does not come across real good, even if he's talking about all the stuff 20 to 30 years later afterwards. All right. It just the thing I just don't appreciate how he's coming across from this. All right. It's come across of envious and jealousy coming out of Horace Grant from all the stuff that he's saying though. Now, is there some truth of what he's saying? Yeah, I believe so. I believe there's a lot of truth to what he's saying. He's not proven as a liar, but to come out and say all these things 20 and 30 years after the fact, it's just beyond pettiness coming out of these players though. And like I said, I'm not defending Jordan what he did in his role as a player at all. I'm not at all. All right, because Michael Jordan was basically a prick to all of his teammates. But at the end of the day, if everything else gets skewed when you won 6 championships, and that's just pretty much the facts of the matter. But I'm gonna also drop in a more of in-depth video about Scottie Pippen too, because this Scottie Pippen thing is really firing up, and I'm gonna give more of an in-depth, perspective about the whole Pippen situation though too. You know what I mean? But let me know what you guys think about the Horace Grant situation. Is he right or is he wrong? But let me know what you guys think, and I'll drop some more videos later on today. So stay tuned, guys.